Secret Invasion, ladies and gentlemen. Secret Invasion, and it's your boy Icon with a Marvel review for you, a Marvel TV review, and I'm still getting over this cold. And we're talking about a little Secret Invasion, and I find it very interesting that it said season 1, episode 1, because why would we get a season 2? So this this is pretty interesting, and it's only 6 episodes, so we definitely gonna talk about it and go straight through it. I have some questions, comments, and or concerns, and we'll discuss that as we review the episode. So the episode starts with Optimus Prime doing a doing a voiceover. It's basically like this reporter, government agent, I forget the dude's name, but he was talking to General Ross. And good old Ross, he comes in, and then this guy who sounds like Optimus Prime is just like, oh, the Skrulls are invading, they're coming after us. He's like, I can't go back to work because I don't know who's watching, who's who, who's this, who's that, who's there. And the whole time he's having this conversation, I'm just like, well, obviously Ross is a Skrull. And that's what ended up happening when Ross basically listened to the guy and let the guy spew, like, you know, all his secrets and everything. And then he said he had like a flash drive or something that had some information on it. And then that's when the guy realized that the Ross he was talking to wasn't the actual real Ross. Him and Ross got into a fight. Ross shot the guy, and then the guy ended up dying. Ross basically then he ran for the hills, and then as he was running, he bumped into Maria Hill, and then he bumped into the Skrull from the Captain Marvel movie, the one who was the friend of Nick Fury and the friend of Captain Marvel. And then the two of them got into a hustle. Maria Hill was on the scene, and then General Ross, he fell off of a building and he died. I don't know if this was our General Ross, or if this was just somebody pretending to be Ross, and our Ross is still out there in the world somewhere doing other stuff. If it's not our Ross, and this guy has been impersonating, and Ross has been a Skrull the entire time, I'm talking about through Black Panther, you know, like through everything. If Ross has been a Skrull the entire time, his character is now completely dead and out of the MCU. And then because of that, once Maria Hill realizes that it's a Skrull and everything, that's when we get the return of young Nick Fury. And this is interesting too, because I believe it was Spider-Man No Way Home. I'm not sure which Marvel movie it was. It might have been Spider-Man. When Maria Hill and Nick Fury it was the second Spider-Man movie when Maria Hill and Nick Fury, they were in the whole damn movie. And then at the end of the movie, we find out that the two of them were Skrulls. I believe it was also the same movie where we saw Nick Fury on the space station, who's supposed to be agents of S.W.O.R.D. They're supposed to be on the S.W.O.R.D. space station. And it was unclear at the time whether or not the Nick Fury on that ship was a Skrull or if that was the actual Nick Fury. Come to find out, that was the actual Nick Fury, and the Fury that we've been seeing on Earth this whole time has been a Skrull, because they said that ever since, you know, the Thanos incident, Fury went once the Thanos incident was over, I guess after Tony Stark's funeral, Nick Fury went to outer space and he never came back. And now he's back, and everybody wants to know, like, why you're back, what brought you back. He's obviously back to investigate the Skrull invasion. He clicks up with Maria Hill again, glad to see her back as always. And again, he also teams up with the Skrull from the Captain Marvel movie, where the two of them have maintained their friendship throughout this entire thing. Now, when they do their investigation, Nick Fury, he's not the same guy, and he has a limp for whatever reason. And, you know, he's a little sluggish, like he's not moving the same. There was even a moment where he was talking to like some British lady. She was just like, oh, my goons picked you up and you didn't even see them coming. And then he was just like, I let them catch me, you know, because I'm Nick Fury, damn it. And the whole episode, everybody's basically just, like, they gave him the Hawkeye treatment, where everybody was basically trying to tell him, like, you're old, you're washed up, you ain't got it no more, Nick Fury, like, this ain't you. And I guess throughout the whole thing, he's trying to prove them wrong, but he never actually said what shook him, what got into him, what's bothering him, like what his situation is. There was a clip where him and Maria Hill were having a conversation in a diner, in a bar, and Maria Hill said to him in the bar, she was just like, you know, you're not the same person, and if you don't got what it takes, you need to step away from this mission because you ain't got it like that. And then that's when Nick Fury basically thought back to when he turned into dust. And before he turned into dust, he was just like, oh, mother. And then, you know, then he disappeared. So I don't know if the trauma of him turning to dust is getting to him or whatever, but only time will tell as these 6 episodes progress. So now they look into the whole Skrull thing. There's a radical group. There's a rogue group of Skrulls that have made a camp for themselves in Russia. And all these Skrulls are living in Russia, and they're trying to basically take over the Earth because apparently back during the Captain Marvel movie, Captain Marvel and Nick Fury 30 years ago back then, they were supposed to find a new home for these Skrulls. And I said, for the love of God, it's been 30 years and they still haven't found a home for these people. I would riot too. In the Captain Marvel movie, which I believe takes place in like the 90s because there was a blockbuster around, if you told me back in the 90s that, hey, I'm going to find a new planet for you and your people, and it is now 2023, and we still don't have a home yet, I'd take over the Earth too. Like, that just makes the most sense to me. But the Skrull that is friends with Nick Fury. He's trying to preserve his people because Nick Fury's whole thing is if the Skrulls are trying to take over the world, we're gonna kill him. And then like the one good Skrull, he's just like, no, don't kill him because these are still my people. Fury's like, I ain't making no promises. And then we also find out we actually see the the resistance compound that these rogue Skrulls live on, and one of the soldiers that works at that compound happens to be the daughter of the Skrull who's friends with Nick Fury. I gotta remember this dude's name. So like his daughter works for the bad guys, he works for the good guys. And his daughter is supposed to implement a plan where 3 bombs were supposed to go off in like Russia somewhere, and I guess that's when they were gonna take over the world. We actually saw a scene where we saw like the Skrulls have human captives downstairs in their basements, and they got these humans tied up. They're taking their identities and then they're taking their memories so they can go out into the world and pretend to be them. And I swear to God, before this series is over, we're gonna find out that 1 or 2 of the Skrulls who were captured and had their minds, had their minds like stolen or whatever, is either gonna be Tony Stark or is gonna be Natasha Romanoff, because that's how we're gonna get the 2 of them back in the MCU. But for now, they're investigating the bomb situation. During them looking into the bomb situation, the father bumps into the daughter, and then he's just like, why are you doing this? And then she's just like, why are you doing this? Like, you're betraying your people, Dad. And he's just like, no, I'm trying to preserve our people. And then then she was just like, oh, what does Mom think of this? And then he said that your mother's last words were, fine, Gia. And then she was just like, what happened to Mom? And then he said, the people that you currently work for killed her. And then now she's like all like, rattled because of that whole thing. She ends up telling her dad, she's just like, listen, I'll help you stop the bomb threat. So she tells them, she's like, listen, I'm going to code. She said that the bombs are going to be in 3 different bags. 3 people are going to have these 3 different bombs. She said, I'm going to encode them with infrared paint or something so you guys can find them. She betrayed them because when Maria Hill, the Skrull, and Nick Fury ran up on the 3 people who had the bombs, the bags that they were carrying them in ended up being empty. The rogue Skrull organization is being led by some light-skinned black dude, and I swear to Christ, I don't know, I guess he is a Skrull. For some reason, I'm calling it now just in case I end up being right. I feel like this light-skinned black dude is Nick Fury's son. Because the way Nick Fury's acting with the whole him disappearing and coming back, it's just very weird. And then even then, because when they went down to where the bomb threat was, and Nick Fury saw the light-skinned black dude, he was like transforming into multiple people while they were going through the crowd. There was a moment where he and Nick Fury were standing toe-to-toe, eye-to-eye, and they didn't even speak to each other, but it was more like an awkward pause. And I'm just like, I feel like this is his son for some. I don't know, or maybe he took the identity of his son. Maybe his son has been captured by the Skrulls. Like, I don't know, but I don't know. I just feel like that's his kid. But anyway, when Nick Fury sees him, he's like, "Put your hands up." The guy doesn't put his hands up. Instead, he blows up like the town square because he ignited the bombs. Because remember, the 3 bombs and the 3 bags ended up being decoys. So the actual bombs were already planted, which means the daughter lied to them and set them up. He set the bombs off. A bunch of people died, and then while the whole chaos was going on, the light-skinned black dude Skrull, who I think is Nick Fury's son, he turned into Nick Fury, and then he ran up on Maria Hill and he shot Maria Hill. And then after he shot Maria Hill, then Nick Fury showed up, and then he was holding Maria Hill in his arms, and Maria Hill apparently died, and that's how the episode ended. And thank you for tuning in. Now, I don't think Maria Hill is dead. Maria Hill has basically been in the MCU since the beginning. Outside of the first Iron Man and outside of the Iron Man, the Hulk, and the Thor movie, Maria Hill's basically been there since day one. Her character, she's been all over the place. She's been on the TV shows. She's been on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She's been in the movies. She's a very important character. You are not going to waste this character's death on a random Disney Plus 6 episode series. My theory is, during the chaos after the bombs went off, the Skrulls ran up on Maria Hill and kidnapped her, and then another Skrull turned into her, and the whole thing about the light-skinned black dude shooting Maria Hill, that was just a setup to rattle Nick Fury's cage, and they got the real Maria Hill tied up somewhere in the basement. That's my theory on that, because like I said, you're not going to kill Maria Hill, I'm sorry. And then they said that was basically how the episode ended. So this is pretty interesting. It's not going the way that I thought it would, because I thought it was going to be every single Skrull on the planet trying to take over the Earth. Apparently it's not. It's just a small, specific group of Skrulls that are trying to take over the Earth, and there are other good Skrulls that are trying to combat them. But the interest here is to find out who is a Skrull. We did get a Don Cheadle cameo in the beginning because he was talking to the president, when he was just like, oh, Nick Fury's back from outer space. Everybody made a big deal out of it. So we'll see. It's it'll be interesting to see who are the Skrulls, who are not the Skrulls, how they get to find out who the Skrulls are, and how this whole thing unfolds. So there definitely is some interest here. There's an interest in this series, and we're going to keep reviewing it all the way until the end. So check out my other reviews because I got my Flash movie review on the channel. I got my episode 12 review of Superman and Lois on the channel. And then for the love of God, we're going hard on that Street Fighter 6. And we about to do some more streaming for Street Fighter 6, so stay tuned to that as well. So that was it, guys. So every Wednesday, you know, Marvel's Invasion comes out. And for the next 6 weeks, we're going to talk about it. And then we'll see where everything concludes and unlock the box of one Nick Fury. So till next time, guys, take care. Mind your friends because they could be squirrels. And we're out this. Bitch!